I'm gonna have this interview in English. I'm gonna have a conversation with Kent Evans, and he's a writer. He's a poet. He's a musician. He comes from New York, but we are using this magical stage when you said, "Oh my God, it is amazing," and it is of a play that we're gonna have today here at the Santa Ana Theater or Teatro Santana, and it is What Happened to Ignacio. Well, if you don't know, the play was canceled because what actually happened to Ignacio was that he got COVID-19. So the play was canceled last month, but now we have it tonight and tomorrow, and he has no COVID. Ken Evans, welcome to the Teatro Santa Ana. What do you think about Ignacio?
I knew nothing about that, but it sounds like something typical of our times.
Well, now you know, I was telling people the other day that I invited the director of the Civil Protection Department to this theater, and I asked him, like, what do you think about the protocols now during the pandemic? And he was like, this theater is following them correctly. But before talking about your event, Kent, I want to hear a little bit of you. What brought you to San Miguel? Because I know that you originally are a New Yorker.
Yes.
What brought you to San Miguel?
You want the long or the short answer?
Long story, short story.
Like somewhere in the middle. Well, in September 11th, 2001, obviously that was a crazy day for everyone, but especially for New Yorkers. And for me, my own story, I had dropped my girlfriend and a really good friend at the airport on flight to India only a couple hours before that all happened. And then it happened, and it was just chaos, and I was stuck in New York. Originally, I was supposed to go meet them, but that didn't happen, and then there was this long, terrible, boring breakup, and eventually, I, like all breakups, I was going through a bad time.
And you were in your 20s.
I was in my 20s, yeah, I was 25 or 26, I think. And then, but in any case, this is before social media. This is before Facebook or anything. But even in those times, somehow some of my collaborators in Germany had heard about my breakup. And I had just recorded a track in Berlin for my friend Volker Meitz, his solo album, Vertical. And he was like, hey, album's coming out. I'm doing a Latin American tour. I heard you had a terrible breakup. Buy a flight to Mexico, meet me, it'll be good for you, you can clear your head. And that would be an awesome story of why I was here, but that's not what happened. As soon as my girlfriend heard that I was going, she came back from India, and we just fought for a month. And then, at the end, I was still broken up, still wanted to give up the apartment, and I still had a ticket to Mexico. Even though, I asked if I could join the tour, and Volker was like, no way, dude, you're so late now. So I just came to Mexico City with no idea of the culture, no idea of the country, no idea of the language. I thought the fact I could speak French.
So you had nothing to do here.
Yeah.
Well, but music is universal.
Yeah.
So you could do everything with your music.
Of course. But at that time, I was mostly focusing on spoken word, and obviously, all my stuff was in English. So, and I have done shows in English in Mexico. And it's funny, before I got to San Miguel, I was very used to audiences just kind of like listening to the rhythm of my voice and listening to the music that was accompanying me. And here's, when I got to San Miguel, it's the first time that the majority of people can understand me, because so many people speak English here. But in any case, I got to Mexico. I was supposed to be here for 2 weeks. 4 months later, I was burning my return ticket home and over a bottle of caña in the Laconda jungle. And then a month after that, I was in Oaxaca, and I was trying to write for their one English language newspaper back then, which no longer exists. And basically, I was suddenly broke in Oaxaca with nothing to do. And there was a girl that I had been seeing throughout my travels in Mexico.
Mexican?
She wasn't. She was actually American.
U.S. citizen.
U.S. citizen.
And what happened? Did you get married?
No. What happened was she was a professor at the University of Guanajuato. Mm-hmm. She kept writing me being like, you should just come to Guanajuato. And 5 hours before I got here, I still thought Guanajuato was Guadalajara.
Well, they sound kind of the
they
same.
sounded
If you are not familiar.
remarkably similar to me. But I got to Guanajuato and I fell in love with it. And so I went back to the States. I got Malice on Disc, which is a book about that first trip. That got picked up. And then I did a little tour with the group in New York. And then waiting for this book to come out, I was suddenly like, you know what, I don't want to be in New York right now.
How old were you when this book came out?
I was 27, I believe.
27. Well, that's young. The other day, I was talking with this author, Peter Ross, and he was saying, when I came to San Miguel, I was 28, and I thought I was too young to write something. So he finally, you know him. So finally, Peter Ross wrote this novel while in his 70s, and it is an amazing book. But you have these Malas Ondas. The title is in Spanish, but the book is actually in English.
It's mostly in English. It's mostly in English with bits of Spanglish because I wrote it as I was sort of learning and picking up little bits of Spanish. So every time I learned something, I tried to put it in there. And it's funny, I read it now, and anytime I put in Spanish, like there's all kinds of grammatical errors and spelling errors and everything else.
And are you going to present during the event something about this book?
Yeah.
What are you going to talk about? You have this event. It's going to be on September 11th. That is going to be at 6 p.m. here at Teatro or Theater Santa Ana or Santa Ana Theater. A night with Kent Evans, friends, poetry, music. I kind of switched the
something
title,
like that. Close enough.
Tell us about it.
So on the 20th anniversary of the Towers, I'm going to be presenting basically a retrospective of my work since I arrived in Mexico 20 years ago. And definitely, I'm going to kind of run through it chronologically. So definitely the first part of the show, aside from talking about the Towers and the impact and why I came to Mexico, I'm going to be presenting various excerpts from Malice on Disc with musical accompaniment. What I have, the musicians that are playing for me for this event are... Who
are the musicians?
Okay, so they also have a story with my time in Mexico. So Michael Severance, he's the first chair cellist for the Guanajuato Orchestra. He also has had a career playing with fairly known rock musicians, like he's recorded with Tom Petty and with Donovan and Hootie and the Blowfish, and he was one of the first guys that I met in Guanajuato who I started doing sort of poetry and music with. So he's going to be accompanying me throughout the show for a lot of, especially in the earlier pieces. I also, aside from being an author, I have my whole musical career, which is kind of, I'm always trying to force the two together, but they're also kind of separate. So one of my Mexican bands is called Dust Industry, and we had our self-titled album come out in 2018, I believe, and the two remaining members, we're no longer Dust Industry, we're formerly known as Dust Industry, but the two remaining members, Cayetano Garcia and Gabriel Nieto, are going to accompany me, and we're going to play tracks from that album, as well as accompaniment to both Malice on Disc and A Crash Course, which was my more recent novel. And so through that, we're going to basically cover 2 novels, 3 albums, 20 years.
So it's like telling a story through music and extracts from the books. Why should people come? They might be like, well, this is totally new music. I'm not familiar with something like that.
Right. Well,
what should motivate them? Besides that,
you're
a writer and you're a New Yorker, you're experiencing, you speak Spanish. So if somebody comes to this event, they're going to hear something in Spanish. I'm sure the show is going to be
claro que sí.
English.
Yo puedo hablar en español, y también Cayetano y Gabriel son mexicanos, y Michael tiene más tiempo que yo aquí en México, entonces todo va a tener micros. Entonces, estoy seguro que vamos a interactuar con la audiencia y todo.
This is a totally new show. Like it has not been presented
In this,
somewhere.
never,
This is
never,
the first.
yeah, never in this form. And I don't think in this form it'll ever happen again. The whole point of it is it's the 20-year anniversary of September 11th and the towers in New York. So it's a very specific show in that way. But it has elements of other shows that I've played. It's sort of, so I have this career as an author and I have a career as a musician, and obviously those are very different crowds sometimes. But I'm always trying to make them fit, you know? Like if I do a book reading somewhere, I'll bring along someone to play music with me, and I'll do it more performative than just kind of like a boring standard reading.
Original music, original show,
Right.
original
All
writing.
original, yeah.
Everything is going to be amazing. So if you want to come to this event, I repeat, it is going to be on September 11th, 6 p.m. at the Santa Ana Theater. You can get your tickets online.
You can get them
and
online.
You can get them at the box office.
And you can get them at the box office. At the box office, they'll be 200 pesos at the door.
Which is $10.
Yeah, which is $10.
Plus, minus.
More or less. And if you go in advance to the Biblioteca side, you can get them for $150. So, which is $750.
Get your tickets in advance. I just want to ask you, I mean, this theater is totally new. It was renewed. I think it was reopened on January this year. You have projections. You're playing with lights.
It's gonna be a little bit of everything. Like I said, it's gonna be the three musicians. We're gonna have. It's gonna be it's gonna be somewhere between a concert and a reading. You know, like I said, with readings, I always try to put a musical element, but also I'm in two rock bands as well as my solo band, and it's always I'll be in the middle of a rock show. I'm always trying to like just sneak a little poetry in there as well. So it's kind of the meeting of these. It's the meeting of these two worlds and these and very very different genres. But the music, for example, the music at the night of the event will go from everything from essentially improv classical with Michael to straight progressive rock with Cayetano and Gabo and Michael joining in on cello. But it's gonna be fun. Hopefully, it'll give people something to think about. I cover many subjects over many years in many countries. Robots, for example, like all of Malasandas happens in Mexico, but robots happens in Mexico, the States, Scotland, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia. So I cast a wide net. And I cover, all the things people, sex, love, relationships, death, family, all of those things.
Everything and nothing everything and nothing in this life.
Yeah.
This theater has a capacity for 100 people, but now due to the pandemic, we're going to have space for.
Yeah, well, it's funny when I went to Pete Ross's event here.
But that was outside.
That was outside in the sala. And when I was talking about doing the event here, and this will be my first official event since the whole pandemic, and I would definitely assure everyone that all the precautions will be taken, all the protocols will be taken, despite the normal capacity of the theater. Certain seats are taped off, so it's not going to be full capacity. You don't have to. I'm not doing a super spreader event, so.
We're taking precautions.
Yeah.
Of course, 50 people, get your tickets in advance. I can't wait to come to this event and listen and see and everything. That is going to be Tuesday. And remember, this is Teatro Santana, and this is the stage for What Happened to Ignacio. Do you want to know what happened to Ignacio? Well, but I don't know what the play is about. But
apparently he got COVID.
I don't know. Is that in Spanish or in English, the play tonight? In Spanish. Okay, well, if you want to know how's daily life using social media, using technology, how the life of a Mexican family during the day, you have to come to this play. And, well, it may be like a Mexican telenovela, Mexican soap opera or something. But on September 11, you mark your calendar and let's come and hear and see Ken Evans
Kent Evans.
and friends with music
And poetry.
and
Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
a good night. Okay, thank you, Ken Evans. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
You have a good day. Thank you.
Cheers.